On the east coast of the Pacific Ocean lies a romantic city called Seattle. Within this city stands an iconic building that no visitor can overlook. People say that visiting Seattle without seeing the Space Needle is like going to Paris without seeing the Eiffel Tower, an experience incomplete. However, when the Space Needle was first built, ordinary people had almost no chance to ascend this novel structure. Constructed in the early 1960s, access to the building was restricted to top-tier wealthy politicians, leaving the common folk outside its doors. But luck has a way of turning up. One day, a pastor visited a church school and made an announcement: anyone who can recite chapters 5 to 7 of the Gospel of Matthew verbatim will be invited to the Space Needle for a free gathering at the revolving restaurant. The students erupted in excited cheers upon hearing this. Clearly, they all longed to enter the Space Needle, a rare privilege indeed. Yet, the pastor knew that the task he set was nearly impossible. The 3 chapters of the Gospel of Matthew were lengthy and lacked coherence, making them difficult to read, let alone memorize. Sure enough, after the initial excitement, many students began to struggle with the challenge. Some gave up after a few attempts, but one 11-year-old boy persevered. That boy was Bill Gates, one of the future world's wealthiest individuals. Young Bill was determined to climb the Space Needle. He had long fantasized about the view from the top, and now that his dream was within reach, he wasn't going to let the opportunity slip away. For about a week, apart from eating and sleeping, he devoted all his time to memorizing the Gospel of Matthew. "I must see the inside of the needle," he urged himself. His efforts paid off, and he became the only student invited to tour the Space Needle. Years later, after founding Microsoft and writing his autobiography, Bill Gates still reminisced about his first ascent of the Space Needle. He told people, "It wasn't that I was smarter than the other kids, I was just willing to work harder, and they weren't." Years later, several former classmates from the church school received an invitation from Bill to visit Microsoft's headquarters in Seattle. In Bill Gates' office, they saw 3 large photographs on the wall behind his desk. The first showed the dilapidated cabin where he lived as a child, the second depicted the majestic Space Needle, and the third was of Microsoft's launch tower. The heights of the scenes in the 3 photos increased in succession, forming an inspiring upward curve. "Do you know why I have the Space Needle on my wall?" Bill asked his friends with a smile. They shook their heads, and Bill explained, "I can now build 26 Space Needles, but I still can't forget the experience of visiting it as a student. It taught me that as long as you persist and do your best, you will succeed eventually." For this reason, Bill Gates has always had a special fondness for the Space Needle. To him, this landmark of Seattle symbolizes success.